Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. You are here with Kate and Katie. So what's funny is Kate and I have not podcasted in the same room for I feel like months at this time.
It's been a while. I mean, we've been podcasting remotely, and then I got super sick last week. My son shared strep throat with me, which was no fun. And I like the day before we're podcasting, I got diagnosed and I felt like I was on my deathbed. I was like, there's no way I'm showing up and sounding like a frog and getting way more sick. You guys would not have appreciated my not sexy frog voice.
And though we haven't podcasted in the same room for a long time. So yeah, you weren't here last week or the weeks, because we batch our podcasts and then they come out weekly. So I know I actually announced that on our podcast because I was like, you guys must think he has strep throat for 3 weeks. Not true. It's actually because we batch our podcast.
But anyways, so we're here together in person, which is so exciting.
It is very exciting.
Yes.
Last week on our episode, you got to listen to Zoe Hauguin on getting ready to scale your business, which is really awesome. Something I always love talking about. Scaling and money makes me happy. And actually this week, today, we get to talk to Diane Webb. And this is really cool because you guys voted on this podcast. We're going to be talking about marketing the clinician you are, not who you think you're supposed to be.
Ooh, it's going to be a good one.
I think I hear something. Wait. Oh, it's the authenticity cowbell ringing. So I hear authenticity. I'm sure that's going to be talked about today. But before we get started, we wanted to say welcome to our first-time guest. You are now part of our Startup Nation family. We are welcoming you with open arms, hugging you into virtually our community. Find us in Facebook, look for the Private Practice Startup, and join us there. And that's where we hang out amongst thousands of other clinicians across the globe. The other thing, too, is we want to invite you, if you haven't taken advantage of it yet, is our free gift to you, which is our attorney-approved, customizable private practice HIPAA form. So head over to privatepracticestartup.com and go ahead and download the HIPAA form for free underneath the resources tab. Without further ado, let's jump in. But before we do dive in, Diane Webb is a licensed mental health counselor and personal development coach. She's the owner-operator of Edwards Mental Health, a group private practice located in Clifton Park, New York. In addition to her practice, she coaches other therapists on reducing the negative impact of imposter syndrome of their career trajectories and marketing. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you. So great to be here. Good to meet you.
Great to have you here.
It is great to have you.
I love how you were sharing the story about when we were testing, or we were talking to Startup Nation and kind of gauging what topic would be most interesting and most valuable for them for the podcast, that this was something that really validated the concept for you, that you've been really having this passion and drive and calling to help coach clinicians with this particular area that we're going to talk about today. And Startup Nation validated that for you. So how cool is that?
It's awesome. I'm so glad to see that other people feel inspired by this. At this point in my career, I'm at a point that I look back on some of the things that I thought about myself as a provider and as a clinician when I was first starting out, and how I have just completely turned those thoughts around. And I want younger clinicians to not have to go what I went through to get to the same place. So I wish that someone said to me, when I was younger, hey, Diane, you don't have to be the clinician that you think you have to be. And that would have saved me a lot of years, I think. So it's good to talk about this topic for that reason specifically, for all those young people just starting out.
I love that you say that. Kate and I, when we do our paperwork webinar, we have a picture of us in our very first professional photos. And I'm doing air quotes for those of you who are listening to the podcast and not watching the video. And literally, there must have been some written rule that you're supposed to wear a black jacket with a white button-up and collar.
And cross your arms, right?
Yeah, I look like a badass or a real estate agent or an awesome litigator, clearly.
You forgot the blue background.
What colors were yours? Was your office? I think mine was a black background.
I don't know.
It's awful. It's very stuffy and
so not authentic.
No. But it's interesting because grad school really teaches us like, oh, you know, have these boundaries, which of course are important, but there was no talk about authenticity. There was no talk about, hey, yeah, there's common factors and joining with your clients important, but people really like to join with you as an authentic person. And the more that we are that in session and the more that we are that in marketing our practice, the more that we light up, right? As well as our clients.
I can remember when I first graduated with my master's, I was, probably 24 at the time. And I looked really young. So every time I get carded now, I'm like, oh, why, thank you. I'm like, you know, I can't believe I still get carded. But anyways, back in the day when I was really young, I was so insecure about that. And I would try to present myself in a way where I looked older. I looked more mature. I would wear suits and, like skirt suits and pantsuits. And so my pictures would wear that. But that's not how I wanted to dress or how I wanted to present myself. But I kept feeling like, who's going to take me seriously, this young kid in their early 20s, trying to help them overcome whatever life difficulties they're going through.
When you haven't even gone through them yourself type of thing.
Yeah,
something
I just had
right?
I totally had imposter syndrome there. And then, it's popped up in a lot of different areas throughout my life. But I can remember that was one of the first times that I just felt really insecure about that. And so I presented myself like inauthentically and overcame that over time. And yeah.
Right. You know, it's funny because my partner, Nicole Edwards, and I actually have the same joke that she used to wear pantsuits every day when she started. And she's a real sharp dresser still. But I think it just shows exactly what you were saying, that we feel like we have to be a certain way, show up for clients in this very regimented, almost like a formulaic way. And then when we get deep into our careers, we actually see that was actually hurting us from connecting with our people and really helping them instead of not really helping them, instead of just being our authentic selves and who we are and capitalizing on the strengths that we have for a specific niche or a population. And that's when we really can help people and be more impactful, right? Yeah. So it's interesting. Hopefully all this talk about this, you know, not just for me, but other therapists that are talking about the same thing and doing the same type of coaching, hopefully we can change the conversation in our whole field about this.
Share with us a little bit about your journey. Like, did you just show up authentically right away, or did you have some type of struggle like we did? So share with us, Diane.
Sure. So in the beginning, I think that there was, for me specifically, I started, pretty much being a field clinician. So I was not working in a traditional office in the beginning of my career. So I don't have the pantsuit story for sure. Like I definitely was wearing jeans and authentic in that way. But for me, the formulaic, the difficult mindset to overcome was that I had to help everybody, no matter what happened, that I was responsible for making sure that they healed. And now when I look back on that, like the pressure and the weight of that was so enormous. And it was so not true, right? So I think that in the beginning, and a lot of the conversation at the time in our field really wasn't pushing against that yet. It was kind of like, no matter who walks in your door or whose door you walk into, you need to help them. And what I would say to a younger clinician now is that's not the case. We don't go into any doctor's office, any doctor anywhere, and expect them to help us with whatever we bring to the table. So when we go to a doctor and we have something that they think is out of the scope of their practice, we don't even bat an eye when they say, hey, I want to send you to the specialist for this specific area, where it's totally acceptable. And I hope that in our field that us clinicians can get to that point too, that there's a place for generalists, and that's really great. And someone who wants to be a generalist, we should all applaud that. And then there's also a place for specialists. There's a time and place for all types of healing. And I guess the reason why this relates to imposter syndrome is because this kind of mindset actually lends itself to is a baseline for imposter syndrome. So someone will feel imposter syndrome when they think they're supposed to help someone's healing or they're responsible for that and they're not able to. But instead of problem solving through that, or surrounding that person with the right people, or taking the right trainings themselves and just looking at it as a natural development of them as a clinician, instead they feel like there's something wrong with me, I'm an imposter. And that's what I really hope to help other people to overcome.
Yeah.
Sooner than I was able to, I want to say.
It's such a common thing that clinicians struggle with, because we get into this field to want to make a difference and want to make an impact in people's lives and really genuinely help people. But we're doing such a disservice to them, to ourselves, when we get outside of our zone of genius and really outside of our expertise, especially. I mean, of course, we're supposed to do no harm and have the clinical supervision and training and all of that. And there's, even when you niche down and you're super clear on who you are, there's always going to be people who call and want to be seen for other areas, because sometimes people have the belief that, hey, if I niche down, I'm going to be so limited. I'm not going to attract as many people. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. They just like spiral in all of these different directions with all the mindset issues. But when you do your best work and you're really helping the people that you're called to serve, that's when you make the greatest impact. And that's when you create raving fans and they go out and they market for you and you really can build up your practice. We talk about this in the e-course a lot. It's definitely a passionate topic of ours, soapbox topic for sure.
One of the things that I think, and wherever you are in your clinical journey for whoever's listening, is that not only in school do we get all these messages, but a lot of times as new clinicians come into the field, we're going into community mental health or hospitals, and it's more about quantity. It's not about quality of service. And it's kind of like pushing for the productivity and see 35 hours of clients a week. And it's really exhausting. And again, I think we kind of get mentally trained into be the generalist. Yeah, maybe we'll give you some training if the contract pays for it, right? You're not encouraged to go out and they might say, go get your own training, do it off work time, or maybe we'll pay for you for this one, but no, we're not going to pay for anything else, right? So there's not this continuation of a conversation of niche down, specialize, show up as your authentic self, right? And of course, there's usually dress codes as well, which is important, and I get all that. But again, I think it's more and more training for those types of things.
Let's go ahead and take a quick break to hear from today's sponsor. If you're in private practice, you wear a lot of hats, and some of those hats are totally great, but some, like filing taxes and running payroll, for example, not so great. That's where Gusto comes in. They make payroll, taxes, and HR actually easy for small businesses like your private practice. Fast, simple payroll processing and benefits and expert HR support all in one place. Gusto automatically pays and files your federal, state, and local taxes so you don't have to worry about it. Plus, they make it easy for you to add on health benefits and even 401ks for you and your team. Let them wear one of your many hats. You have so many better things to do with your time. Listeners get 3 months free when they run their first payroll. Try a demo and see for yourself at gusto.com/PPS. That's gusto.com/PPS. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, and frustrated, not knowing where to start or how to grow and scale your private practice? You've spent years in school and a ton of money getting your degree, but you weren't taught the necessary branding, marketing, and entrepreneurial skills needed to be successful in private practice.
We get it. We've been there. We're Kate and Katie from the Private Practice Startup. We've spent a crazy amount of money and over a decade learning and perfecting a proven marketing strategy that works. Let us teach you the step-by-step proven system to help you fill your practice with the clients you love and live the life you've always dreamed of. Visit privatepracticestartup.com. Look for the e-course tab to learn more and see the amazing results our coachees have been achieving.
One of the things that I've found, and I keep saying this a lot, is for me, business feels to be successful in business, I should say, is counterintuitive, right? And again, Kate and I, similar thing. We came in and it's like, oh, just be a generalist, serve everybody. Oh my God, scarcity mindset. I don't want to say no to people, right? Yeah. And now it's just like, it's so rewarding when your ideal client continues to call you. It's just easy.
Yeah.
Right. It feels effortless. And I think that, that before and after picture is so tremendous. Like there is so much of a lesson in that. Like this just feels like easing through, and it doesn't even feel like work at all when you have, a caseload that's primarily the people that you're in alignment with, spiritually, emotionally, and in terms of, your clinical sense too.
Yeah. And for you, what do you suggest for people to step more into their authentic self? I said authentic. We've been saying authentic and not ringing the cowbell.
It's okay. We're going to make everybody have like eardrum issues if we ring it the whole podcast.
But it's so fun. We haven't been ringing it much. So yes, in regards to what do you suggest for people to step into that clinician that's more authentically them? What have you overcome? What do you suggest?
Yeah. So I think that looking at the mindset shifts, first of all, is really important, right? So, I can really speak mostly from my own journey as a provider, but also following along, people that work with me as well. I think that before we even think about niching down or, any of that kind of stuff, I think the first question is, am I responsible to help everybody that I see, right? And no, you're responsible for your effort. That should always be there, but you're solely not responsible for healing that person. So that in and of itself is a huge mindset shift that you should make. And then after that, you want to think, okay, so what are the people that I'm in alignment right now with my development as a clinician without any judgment on it, right? Like if right now you're only comfortable with short-term solution-focused therapy, that's great. And you can do that. And there's a niche for that. And there's a market for that right now. So you don't have to make yourself something that you just aren't. So if you feel like something is a stretch for you, meet yourself where you're at and don't put any value judgments on that. Does that make sense? There's a lot of, okay.
And I really love that you say that because it's giving permission to be okay with the now. And at the same time, as you evolve as a clinician, as you evolve as a business owner, that can change. And because you niche in a certain area now doesn't mean you have to do that in 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. And that's okay. So I really like that you're giving people the permission to just be where you are. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And then when you say like, this is okay, I'm going to have radical acceptance to where I am in my career right now. And then you can really say, what audience is in alignment with me and who can I be most impactful with? And that's where the magic is, I think. And I hope that question changes throughout someone's career many times over. And that's one of the beautiful things about being a therapist, being a social worker, a mental health counselor, whatever your license is that we can reinvent ourselves many times over. And I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you suggest for clinicians who are trying to get more clarity on how to figure out who they're in alignment with? Like whether it's in whatever way, whether it's energetically or just the experience or spiritually, whatever frame of reference that they're looking at that from. What do you suggest?
So in a PDF I'm actually, gave for this podcast, it leads you through an exercise to help you to see who you are in alignment with right now. And it starts with you remembering when you were a kid and you were energetically filled up by something. And I go back to that childhood experience because I honestly think that sometimes as adults, we forget what that feeling is like. So I take you back to when you accomplished something that you're really proud of when you were a kid. And then you hold on to that feeling and you match that to when you worked with a client that you felt really energetically filled up by. And this doesn't mean that there's no value judgment about the type of client issues that you're presented with. It's just helping you to clear what you feel the most filled up by. Because when you're energetically filled up by your work with a client or a certain population, then that really resonates and you can really be impactful with these people. So it's good for them and it's good for you as a therapist to be able to identify that.
I love that question. I remember about 2 years ago, I did this weekend workshop thing and it was called the Millionaire Mind Mission Impossible. Mission Possible. That's what it was called. And part of the activity was to go back when we were young. And I remember I'm doing the activity and I don't know if you guys did this one. For me to make my homework go by faster, I used to play school teacher, with myself and my invisible pupils, right? And so I'd assign the math assignment and I do the math assignment and, I'd call on whoever over there, right? And I remember wanting to be a teacher and I'm doing this exercise and I'm like, I am so far from a teacher. Are you kidding me? And then I'm like, wait a second, a coach is a teacher. right? A supervisor is a teacher. And I was like, wow. And that is really a lot of what I enjoy doing. And I've been in management and leadership since 26 years old. And so again, that is a form of teacher. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm not really that far off. It's just a different expression. So I would just encourage you guys, as you go back and maybe you wanted to be a toy tester, I would say on YouTube, but I think we're all too old to be a kid with YouTube at this point. But I don't know, maybe you are doing some level of that. Maybe you do play therapy, right? Like you wanted to be the toy tester and you do play therapy. I know that we had Melanie Taylor on our podcast, and she was just really cool. She wears Converse sneakers and these like funky t-shirts and stuff like that. And she does play therapy, I think, with kids and adults. And I just thought that was a really cool, like fun expression of herself, but just really authentically. And then we attract those similar people that really can appreciate who we are and what we can give. And then they have this really cool experience with us.
Yes. So for me, when I do this exercise, I feel really in alignment when I do trauma therapy. So in my clinical practice, I'm a trauma specialist. So as you can see, this exercise is not a value judgment about, what someone's bringing in terms of difficulty, but it's about how energetically filled up you are by the process of helping this person. And so that's where it specifically brought me to. So that's how I niche down for myself.
Go ahead.
I'm just not sure that I could ever done that if I didn't clear this imposter syndrome right from the start, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. As you asked that question earlier, I just had this memory of myself that I haven't thought of in, God, I don't know, a really long time.
It's the trauma therapist effect on you. She's tapping into the unconscious.
So I'm 37, I'll be 38 in August. And this memory that popped in my mind was probably when I was like, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years old. And my mom had this huge, huge flower garden. I mean, like probably 40 feet by like 20 feet of like all these wildflowers and beautifully designed garden. And I would go out and I would pick all of these flowers and make this beautiful flower arrangement basket. And I'd come in and I'd bring it inside. I'd be so proud of what I created.
Did you get yelled at?
No, I didn't get yelled at. But I really enjoy designing, and I've been doing some work on myself over the past year or so, and it's become a lot more clear in my mind that I'd like to be in the design phase, the creation phase of business. And as a group practice owner, and I'm able to, as I've reduced my caseload, I'm able to really be in that higher level of designing the practice, and even just doing the build out design for this group practice that we opened in January of this year. The whole designing of that and working with the architect, and then designing all the color schemes and the artwork and all the themes for all of the rooms, being involved in the business on that level, and then inspiring the team and helping them to do their best work. I just love being involved on that higher level. And then you and I have been talking about really creating these design days for the business, because we love the content creation. Like when we're doing the podcast and the videos and showing up and really supporting Startup Nation, to be more involved in that level. So I haven't thought about that memory in, I don't know, a really, really long time. So thanks for that question.
Yeah. And I love how, as we all shared our stories, like it does like almost equally pair to something as an adult in here. And
so
you know what, Kate, you just did a new promo video for your new office. So let's add that to the show notes so people can like see the design you created, because they're probably wondering, what does this office look like?
Yes, we can include the video for that. Yes, we just
had
a new promo video done. It looks really great. So we'll share that with you guys.
Diane, what other questions do you ask? That was a great question. I love that.
So in there, you visualize, where do I have that energetic excitement, and where do I feel most filled up with this particular type of client, to help you to see, where you can focus your energy as a clinician now, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to only see this specific type of person, but just helps you to give an idea, to start saying that I don't have to help everybody. Or maybe when someone's outside of my scope of practice, I'm going to allow myself to say that maybe I should refer you to someone else who's a specialist in your area, right? So it just gets a conversation going. And then it asks certain questions about, what skills do you have right now that you can help this client, right? So it's also to allow people to see that you already can do it. Like you already have a skill set that can be very impactful with this person. But then it also asks you to take a look at, if there's something that this person might want help with, and you don't have the training or a certification that you want, what would that be, right? So it kind of clears the way so that you have you take care of your imposter syndrome in a way that through the exercise, you end up with a very clear look at who you are as a provider without all that mindset stuff, right? All the negative mindset influence.
I love it.
I know we're getting close to the close of our podcast, but one of the things that I think Startup Nation has on their mind is they're like, but the title says marketing the clinician. So how do you do the marketing? Right. And one of the things that Kate and I talk about is really the journey of marketing starts with us. And I think that's what you're really focusing on, Diana, is talking about tapping into ourselves first. And one of the things that Kate and I love to talk about is that, and we totally did it the wrong way, is try to market everywhere, market everything, try everything out. It's interesting. I remember like writing copy for our upcoming e-course, and I actually listed out, I think it was like 17 different things that I tried, like ridiculousness, crazy. And interestingly enough is when you know who you are authentically, who you love to serve, who your ideal client is, but also know your strengths, it's easy then to market, right, to others. And we talk about that as strategy. So whether it's you're thinking about Facebook or email marketing or AdWords, or obviously SEO and copy is really important on a website. So that stuff then comes easy. So I'm going to invite you guys to relax into yourselves through Diane's questions and suggestions and comments on this podcast. And if you're in a place where you're not so clear yet who you are as a therapist, is just to take some time and be there with yourself and kind of navigate that area. I know for me, being the person that I am, I like want the answer now. Like, okay, if it's not now, next week, I have to have the answer. And sometimes it's not that easy. And I'm sure with your giveaway and the questions that you're asking, this will help facilitate part of that process. So shocking. I always love talking about this stuff. This is our passion, our bread and butter, but we definitely appreciate you being here, Diane. So what do you want people to take away from your message today? That's what I took away.
I'm so glad that was your takeaway, because that's it. Like, I want people to know that authentic marketing, to be the clinician who you are, your authentic self, is an inside job. So when you believe it and you're in the embodiment of it and you are resonating with that, it will naturally come out in your Psychology Today profile. It will naturally come out in the way that you introduce yourself to other clinicians, or when you're having coffee dates with other therapists, or you're talking to other practices in your area. So I'm glad that was a takeaway.
As you were talking, I was just thinking about the first time I wrote copy for my website, and I had someone review it and they're like, your copy is so academic. And it's taken 8 to 10 years to evolve. But yeah, I was writing like I was in school. And again, this is why I'm just so passionate about when you know, like Diane said, it's an inside job. When you know who you are, your natural expression just comes out. And it's easy, and you're not going to write a research paper on your website because that's boring. No one wants to read that. I mean, that goes into one of those journals that we get for free, which is super boring. So Diane, thank you so much for being with us here today. Tell us what your giveaway is again, and we're going to go ahead and put it on the show notes page.
Sure. So the giveaway is a PDF to walk you through that exercise that we talked about. It's called Discover Your Provider Identity Profile.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yes, we've so appreciated you being here for this topic today. So valuable. And we love that Startup Nation actually created the need for this, and we are filling that. Hopefully you guys are finding a lot of value in this episode as well. And we wanted to take a quick moment to do our Startup Nation superhero shout out. And today's is Dr. Sean Davis. He says that the podcast is an excellent resource for those interested in starting, growing, or maintaining a private practice. Really relevant info hosted by successful clinicians. So thank you, Sean Davis.
Sean is one of our colleagues out in California who has an awesome group practice and is super successful out there. And I don't know, are we going to get to meet Sean when we go out to California in May? I don't know if he's close or not. Maybe.
He's like 6 hours away.
Oh, yes. We're not going to be able to meet him. So Startup Nation, thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our podcast with Diane Webb, talking about marketing the clinician you are, not the one you're supposed to be. We talked about the problem, what it is, what's problematic, the imposter syndrome. Diane gave us some great questions to ask yourself to really get authentically connected in this inside to outside job. Next week, you will want to join us for Melanie Taylor. I mentioned her before, and we're going to talk about agency breakup. I wish I left you a long time ago. So she's going to talk about how to break up with your agency. And if you've broken up with your agency, you just might want to join us to reminisce, because I don't know if those were the good old days. I do say I worked in agency work for 11 and a half years. I said I served my time. Yes, more like prison statement, but not really, because I learned so much, everything from the auditing to electronic health records to contracts. So I'm forever grateful about that opportunity. Startup Nation, we look forward to inspiring you from startup to mastery, and we will see you on the next podcast. Have a fantastic day.
See you next time. Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.